In the past week, if you are a K-pop stan like myself, you may have gotten a video documentary in your recommended on the K-pop boy group EXP Edition. For anyone who is not familiar with EXP Edition, they got a lot of traction last year when they officially debuted in Korea as the first all non-Korean K-pop group. People, specifically international fans, were appalled and offended that these white boys would infiltrate the K-pop industry. What I want to focus on in this video is the point of view from the documentary by Vice, the critics of EXP Edition, and their formation and the part they play in Korea. There are many viewpoints to cover here on possibly the most controversial K-pop group ever. So basically, the Vice documentary gave EXP a chance to come in front of all the hate they got when they debuted. Just some background info, EXP Edition was formed in 2015 and debuted in 2017 in a very unconventional way. A Korean woman named Bora Kim wanted to study what formula made a K-pop group successful, and if that formula could be applied to anything or anyone. The formation of the group was a social experiment to see if they could actually become a successful K-pop group. The four members are Frankie, Hunter, Syme, and Koki, two of which are American, one of which is European, and the other is half European, half Asian. They are all between the ages of 25 and 30. The documentary touches that the members got death threats and much hate. Specifically, a lot of comments because they were white. People thought their criticisms were more racially charged than actual critique to their talents. I want to dissect each claim separately and focus on each one and what they actually meant. The first main criticism I want to talk about is their race. Regarding the race part, I understand both sides. They shouldn't be prohibited of joining the industry because they're white, point blank, period. There are plenty of idols that aren't Korean, and that's not a problem. K-pop is becoming more and more globally recognized by the minute, and it only makes sense that more and more people will be interested in it. People deem their group as cultural appropriation, which I don't full-heartedly agree with. Yes, they go on Korean shows and sing in Korean and try to appeal to a Korean audience, but they do so respectfully that cultural appropriation shouldn't even be mentioned. They all express how much they respect the culture and how they actually took the time to learn it during their 2 years of training. And honestly, I've yet to see of them actually being disrespectful to the culture. Especially since K-pop has so many actual cultural appropriation problems already. With the constant taking from Western and Black trends, it's funny to me that people want to call them out for basically nothing. People say that since Korea is so homogeneous, they can't tell that their culture is being mocked or taken from, but who are you to be the arbiter of that? The Korean population of 40 million people are not children, and they can determine for themselves what is respectful and not to their culture. And if Korean fans don't have a problem with EXP in Korea, it's no international fan's place to deny that. But the part that irks me just a little bit is that this was formed from a social experiment. A social experiment by a Korean woman, but a social experiment nonetheless. They capitalize on the fact that they are different, and their marketing strategy was, hey, we're white, look at us, look how different we are. It's sort of a joke to me that this was their main selling point to be famous. Another comment I see is that if the boys were black trying to break into the K-pop industry, all these international fans would be behind them. And I do think that this has some truth to it, but let me explain myself first. I remember when Michelle Lee came into the scene around 2013, and so many people thought it was a win for K-pop because it was. The thing about black people in Korean society is that it goes against the standards that are already there. It's no secret that Korea is a very conservative and traditional country suffering from very volatile racism and colorism. Watch any foreigner in Korea video and any black person will confirm to you that the blatant and confrontational mistreatment they receive is there. Even Han Hyun-min, who grew up in Korea his whole life and was brought up like any other Korean citizen, says he was treated as an outcast and constantly made fun of for his blackness. So when black personalities like Han Hyun-min or Sam Okier, for that matter, can break into the Korean entertainment industries as personalities, it helps Korea understand their point of view and that they are people too. Koreans already favor people with pale skin and straight hair, so when people who don't fit the standard are able to come out in front of it, it's a pretty big deal. But what standards does EXP break? They already fit the Golden Korean standard, and I don't want to fault them too much for being white because they obviously cannot control that. But if they think they're breaking any records for being quote-unquote different, they're not. That being said, if there was an all-black K-pop group with the same skill set as EXP, they would not be successful. Sure, they'd maybe get some international fans rooting for them, but they would not get anywhere in Korea. And that's just because the country just isn't there yet, in my opinion. Another criticism EXP receives is on their talent. They trained for around 2.5 years, learning Korean and practicing their vocals and performances at that time. But when they debuted, many people said that they were cringy, which is pretty true. They're very clearly not making an image for themselves, but rather trying to copy already popular K-pop groups. Which, I mean, is understandable because their group was formed on the thesis that any successful K-pop group can make it big on a certain formula, and they are just carbon copies of many groups combined, such as BTS and EXO, which, at least to me, is very obvious that they're trying to model their group after. But their vocals are subpar, their dancing routines aren't very engaging, and their onstage presence is borderline non-existent. Also, their pronunciations aren't good, which has been brought up by Korean fans, but that's besides the point. Their blow-up success just shows how white people can be mediocre and still flourish, even though they are not a talented group. They still have comebacks and still able to produce music, and even received a $30,000 Kickstarter to record their first mini-album. For many K-pop idols, they train for years, giving up their teenage years to have a chance to debut, and I'd say over half of them are eons more talented than EXP, in my opinion. And one unsuccessful debut can mean disbandment in under a year for many kids. If you don't believe me, YouTube all the groups that have debuted and disbanded after one comeback. Or for that matter, won a lengthy high-stakes survival show and didn't even debut, like Mix9 for example. Plus, I haven't seen any black K-pop artists ever try to be a complete carbon copy of other groups, so that argument really isn't valid. And for an example, I want to talk about Coco Avenue, which is a black K-pop duo who make music as well. They incorporate actual R&B hip-hop into their music and just sing in Korean. It's very Janelle Monáe and Chloe Halle inspired, but it has their own flavor and originality to it, and I personally don't think that being a carbon copy of any existing act will make you successful. So in conclusion, I won't be standing EXP Edition anytime soon, or honestly ever, but there are some misconceptions about them. What they're doing isn't cultural appropriation. A lot of Korean fans don't even have a problem with them and actually like their music. It's just the international fans, specifically the fake woke social justice warriors / Koreaboos who only want Asians in their K-pop music. But what I will admit is that what they're doing is pretty pathetic. Using your different race factor card to hype up your group and write off that fact is just disappointing and a joke, and honestly demeaning to K-pop and Korean society. I'm not saying K-pop fans should give them a chance, especially because of their lack of talent, but I definitely think EXP shouldn't be getting death threats on account of them trying to make it. Maybe some vocal lessons and a new choreographer and a new original style. But there isn't a formula, I believe, for creating K-pop groups, and their all-white hype will die out eventually. But time will only tell what will happen to EXP in the future. So tell me, guys, what you think of EXP, if you stan them or not, what your first reaction was when you heard of them, your position or your perspective, what you think of them after watching the documentary or after watching this video, and what you think of them going forward. Because I know this has been all over my timeline on Twitter, I know, since the documentary came out, and I just wanted to put my perspective and my opinion on it, and I really want to hear what other people think, because I think after this, it could change, but I think that no matter what, I don't think they'll be able to make it in the K-pop industry, at least from an international standpoint. So just let me know what you guys think, and I'll read your comments and reply, because I love doing that. All right, thanks, guys. See you later.